All to the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. Hopefully everybody had a happy Halloween. It was really fun to see all the postings of the Halloween parades and activities that were going on around the district. And I always love seeing those. I missed Bonneville's this year, but I think before that had gone to like 22 straight Bonneville Halloween parades. It's always fun to see what clever ideas kids come up with, and I'm always super impressed with our teachers who dress up and get into it and support our kids with that. It's really fun. And then let's see, I'd like to welcome the members of the board. We've got a couple of board members participating remotely tonight in Dr. Kennedy and Board Member Bade. And Christy, Board Member Sweat, let us know she was running just a few minutes late, but she will be here. So we'll look forward to having her join us. And welcome to Superintendent Bates, who's sitting next to me, and Business Administrator Kersley. Cabinet members, thank you for being here. We appreciate all that you do and the support you give to our students and to us. We'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance, and for that we have one of our superstar principals, Wayne Culp, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And welcome to Lydia, our student board member. Here, Lydia.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent, we have some fun recognitions tonight, and I'm going to turn the time to you to introduce those.
Thank you, board members. You know that here in the district we have a Teacher of the Year program, and that then our winner, if you will, then moves on to the state. And while that process is concluded and our Teacher of the Year was not the state Teacher of the Year, we wanted to recognize her, and she was on board to come, but
looks like she might be
virtual.
That's her picture.
Oh, okay, picture.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
she appreciated the invitation, but Elton John's in Vegas, and so
That's what she should be
sometimes
doing.
you got to do what you got to do.
do it.
But we've invited James and the principal to come, please.
Well, Superintendent and board members, first of all, thank you for this opportunity, and it's an honor to be able to present Elise Maxwell as Teacher of the Year. As you know, we in the Salt Lake Education Foundation go through a rigorous process in identifying the teachers through a nominating process. And this year, obviously, it was Elise Maxwell, the Teacher of the Year, and she was one of the 5 finalists in for the State Office of Education. So let me just tell you a little bit about Elise. Elise Maxwell is a 3rd grade teacher at Bonneville Elementary in Salt Lake City. In 2014, she earned honors degree in elementary education from University of Utah. 2018, she became a national board certified teacher. In 2022, she earned a master's of educational psychology with focus on reading and literacy, also from University of Utah. She holds endorsements in English as a 2nd language in educational technology. She's passionate about valuing existing strengths of diverse learners and help them grow. When she was recommended as Teacher of the Year, one of the nominators said, "Ms. Maxwell has created a classroom routine that inspires students for all backgrounds and abilities to learn. As a teacher exhibiting some of the strongest Tier 1 support in school, Ms. Maxwell holds daily morning meetings where students gather to check in before they begin their learning. She fosters an emotionally stable environment that welcomes her learners every day." Ms. Maxwell also has spearheaded and support family of one of her students who is a refugee from Afghanistan, providing extra materials for this personal tutor and collaborating with Bonneville teachers to create stronger access school resources. In Ms. Maxwell's class, students' basic needs of safety and love are met so they can achieve academic rigor. Last, what I want to say about Miss Maxwell, she will often spend her lunchtime with the students in the cafeteria so she can hear all their stories. Children are so eager to tell the teacher about all kinds of topics, but most importantly, events that are going on in their lives. Ms. Maxwell recognized the importance of sharing information with a trusted adult, but was also aware of how much classroom time it takes and came up with a great solution. And she's a fantastic teacher. She's not here with us, but Wayne, our principal, is here, and if you want to say a couple words, but
I just want to thank the board and Dr. Bates for honoring Elisa this meeting, so I appreciate that. And she is a great teacher, and the Bonneville community loves her, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for honoring her.
thank you. I appreciate that.
State Superintendent Dixon and I and some others got to visit her classroom the other day, and she really is, she's a great teacher and a great example of so many great teachers that we have in our district serving our kids. So please tell her thank you, and we don't begrudge the decision that she made, but we missed her, but we're so grateful that she's with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Express our gratitude to her, and I certainly do know her to be a highly trained, highly skilled, and very thoughtful teacher. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have another recognition, Superintendent?
We do. Yandri, will you come forward?
To be clear, I am not being recognized.
But we recognize you.
We recognize you, and now you'll do some recognizing.
Yes. And having just seen this Elton John tour, I do not blame Elise one bit.
It's the last tour.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been asked today to share a little bit about Hispanic Heritage Month. We recently concluded this month, and I want to tell you a little bit about it. National Hispanic Heritage Month is observed every year from September 15th to October 15th. Some people think that's a bit of a weird start date, but September 15th marks the Day of Independence for several Central American countries, and throughout that month, Hispanic Heritage Month, a lot of the other Latin American countries celebrate their independence as well. It's a time to honor the achievements, contributions, culture, and history of Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx people here in the United States. And we recognize and honor our Hispanic, Latinx, and Latino students during this month, but we recognize and honor them year-round as well. Here in the Salt Lake City School District, we serve a diverse community of learners. Most of our students actually come from a minority racial or ethnic background, with almost 40% of our students being from Hispanic, Latinx, or Latino heritage. Not only that, but among our employees, almost 20% are from a Hispanic, Latinx, or Latino background. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that number so we can recognize their contributions as well. 2020 census data showed that Latinos contributed significantly to the population growth we saw here in our state and in our city. And I'm sure that trend is likely to continue. And as the makeup of our country and our city and state change, it becomes increasingly important to acknowledge the rich diversity, contributions, and perspective that our Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community brings to our school district, especially when we're talking about our students. It's incredibly important for them to see educators who look like them, who they can trust, and who are seen and respected as leaders in our school district community. It's also crucial for us as school and district leaders to remember who it is we're here to serve. Our diversity brings depth and richness to our school communities, but it also brings some challenges to our learning that need to be acknowledged and overcome. Adults don't just teach, and we don't just make arbitrary policy decisions here at the district level. We learn from our students, and we use that knowledge to provide them with the most equitable learning opportunities and experiences. Our students, our families, our employees of color are not just statistics here in the district. They are vital members of our school communities, and we honor the contributions each of them makes to help us achieve the district's vision of equity, of excellence and equity, every student, every classroom, every day. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much, Yandri. I really appreciate that recognition. Thank you so much for that. All right, we will go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. And at this time, I am open to accepting a motion from a board member on the consent agenda.
President Ford, I move that we accept the consent agenda with the following items. 1, purchasing and accounting reports. A, purchasing report. B, purchasing report in Excel format. C, budget report for September. D, payment voucher report. E, school financial report September 30th. F, September administrative stipend report. 2, human resource services report. 3, minutes for the board meeting October 4th, 2022. 4, minutes for the board meeting October 18th, 2022. 5, HB 58 positive plans approval, and 6, open closed designation at November 1st, 2022 at 5:40 p.m.
Thank you, Bryce. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
I second.
Motion by Bryce, second by Christy. Thank you for being willing, Mohammed, as well. And do I have any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion, beginning with Precinct 1 and Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
I see
Mohammed, yes.
nodding.
Nate Salazar, yes.
And Mohammed said yes. Okay.
Yes.
Mohammed.
I had a hard time unmuting, but I say yes.
Okay, thank you. I took your nodding to be a approval, Catherine. Thank you. Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. We will now go ahead and move to our request to speak. We have, thank you. We have 2 people signed up to speak. We always love to hear from community to come address the board. And before we do that, I will read the statement that the board has given me to read. The board enjoys the opportunity to hear from the public during the public comment portion of our meetings. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to remind you of our board rules governing your comments. The time may not be used to air complaints concerning bidding, contracts, employment, or personnel issues, to criticize or defame district employees, or to make complaints for which other avenues for redress exist. Time may not be used by employees or their representatives to circumvent formal communication channels or to establish grievance or negotiations procedures. And the total time reserved for public comment is not to exceed 15 minutes, with individual presentations limited to 3 minutes and group presentations limited to 5 minutes. I'd also like to explain that unless the speaker's topic is already on the agenda, state law prohibits the board from deliberating or taking action on items raised during the public comment period. However, if it seems appropriate to the circumstances, I may direct district staff to follow up with the speaker on the topic discussed. So with that, I'd like to invite our first speaker to join us. And if you'll come sit up to the table at a microphone, Itzel Nava. Thank you, Itzel, for being here. Just remember, Itzel? It's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Itzel, okay.
So I wanted to just quickly introduce myself. My name is Itzel, and I'm a Glendale community member, an East High graduate. So this is my first time speaking here, so I'm a little nervous. But with that being said, I wanted to bring up the topic of adding an additional high school in the West Side. I think this is really important, not only to myself, but to my peers, because as an East High graduate, I experienced a lot of hardships, having to be bused to a different community. So not only was I not being able to be a part of certain things at East High School, such as participating in events, sports, or even just being a part of this type of lifestyle that East High has, as far as being involved, but also my parents weren't able to be involved because I come from an undocumented immigrant family. I'm also first generation, so that means that my parents weren't didn't have easy access to language accessibility, especially when everything was in English. At the time when I was at East High, all the events were held on the East Side, and if you don't have a vehicle, it makes it really hard to actually go over there. But I have a few suggestions, aside from me wanting a high school on the West Side, and aside from my personal experiences. I do suggest that the board consider the feasibility study to be amended to include the consideration of a high school in the West Side. instead of expanding the already existing high schools, instead of making them bigger, I think we should make them smaller for various different reasons. But also, it's very needed in the community. I also suggest that the board do find additional ways to receive feedback from community, and not only parents, but also youth who want to advocate for a high school. And so also, like, on top of that, these meetings are not accessible to communities. First of all, it's on the east side when our parents live on the west side, our youth live on the west side. Also, when I signed up for this meeting, I had not a great time being able to sign up. Also, when I got the confirmation email for this meeting, I was sent the wrong address, because your website says otherwise. And then in my email, it's like, so that's why I was late. So I just want to also have those small details checked before you reach out to folks, but also find ways to make it accessible for communities who have a lot to say, but they need the opportunity. So if you can find alternative ways to receive this feedback, that would be great, and also the feasibility study. So that's all.
So much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and speaking to the board. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Our next speaker, Lourdes Cook, if you want to join us.
President Ford, kind of personal privilege. Lourdes actually texted me and said that she was running late and was lost, essentially with the same
maybe.
address snafu, but
Okay.
but anyhow, I don't know if we want to give her time when she gets here or.
Okay. If you want to, that's up to the board. I'm open to that if we want to do that when she arrives. If not, we'll see when she comes. But what I do now, let's just move on to the report section of our agenda, and you can maybe point out to me when that happens. Thank you. All right. Thank you for coming and speaking to the board. We do appreciate the opportunity we have to hear from community, and your requests timely were something that the board is looking at now, so thank you. All right. First section, next section on our agenda is the report section, and the first report is the Rose Park Clinic renovation. Superintendent?
Nicole should be coming, and also we have a representative from Intermountain Healthcare, Shireen Garbani. She's struggling getting to our building, so. But I will start with a brief presentation. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you board members. We appreciate the time you're giving us to discuss the Rose Park Clinic. Do you have the clicker? Okay, so go ahead and just go into the next slide, please. A few weeks ago, we had the great opportunity to present the Rose Park Clinic. As you know, the clinic was created or built in 1993 with an incredible vision back then. When you look at what has transformed all the way to 2021, the amount of work that has taken place in Rose Park to bring the community together, most importantly to address the healthcare needs of our students and families, has been tremendous. I can't commend this board enough of the work that you have done, because during the pandemic, if it wasn't for some of these community learning centers and you didn't have that vision, we would have struggled in meeting the needs of our families back then when we were going through the pandemic. When we talk about the 5 pillars, real quick, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Our main focus in the 5 pillars of the CLCs have been early child education, youth academic support, enrichment, adult education, post-secondary opportunities, access to physical mental health care, community development, and civic engagement. Hi. So while we have been addressing these different areas, thank you, Shireen. Shireen Garbani from Intermountain Healthcare. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for joining us, and sorry if it was difficult to find our building.
It was I shouldn't have put it into a map.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, so when we discuss the 5 pillars of our CLCs, obviously, it is important for us to recognize that our main focus is how do we support our families in our communities and bring them together and meet the academic needs, the healthcare needs, and other opportunities for our families. certainly the 5 pillars has been in place, and we continue to grow and build on that. The next slide really is about, and I know it's hard to see this, but a few weeks ago, Nicole and I shared information with you, and maybe Shireen can just talk a little bit about the total encounters that we've had at the clinic. When you look at the Rose Park Clinic, is a very, very small clinic, but the number of encounters. So when you, if you don't mind talking a little bit
No,
about
not at all. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and to talk about a project that I just am so grateful for in our community and really proud to be a part of. The encounters that we have at this clinic are unique in that I think that there's an element of trust and credibility and community that comes with it being in a school, which is an incredible asset, I think, in terms of the broader community. We also know that this is an area of the city where we have incredibly high uninsured rates, and that's reflected in the kinds of patients that we see as well, right? So when we think about the unique encounters, we are really thinking more broadly about the community's health and their access to healthcare. And so we know that access can mean, do you think you can afford it? But part of it can be, do I have transportation to get there? Knowing that this clinic resides right in this community where we know that we have particularly high rates of individuals who are uninsured, people who are struggling with really kind of common chronic illnesses, asthma, kind of chronic disease. This clinic provides that support. So you can see here that we've got, so it's about 800 unique patients, but over 1,000 encounters that we've had since the reopening.
Yes, and the reopening, really, it took us, we had to shut it down during part of the pandemic and then reopen that around, I would say, June, July, and then all of a sudden it just picked up. What we're seeing, our families, there's a huge number of our families that are uninsured, and we're working with many of our partners to be able to get them enrolled, and most importantly, the CHIP and Medicaid is really important to our kids in our schools. So I guess the big question is why renovate, which is the next slide. This is a question that has come up, and the more I see, when I go visit the Rose Park, the first thing I see is access and making sure that families have easy access and they understand where the clinic is. Initially, when we started, when this was built, it was a small clinic hidden kind of in the back, towards the back of Rose Park Elementary. But there are many, many changes that really need to take place in order for us to make sure that families have easy access to the clinic. Key improvements in accessibility, safety, and modernization, additional program offerings, enhanced community service, parking improvements to allow the community to better access to the CLC. Just another example would be, I've been collaborating extensively with Horizonte on the students' credit recovery to encourage students to get their credits. Well, Northwest SLCSD has over 60 to 80 students that are constantly going there. And the way I look at it also, if this community learning center, if the space is, a little bit expanded, and we're not going to do it beyond what's already an existing building, but it's what we have, and make sure that we have also worked with the civil engineers, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. I think it would provide opportunities for West High students to be able to use the computer labs, to be able to get some tutoring, possibly do some GED preparation closer to their homes, so that way they can have access to those computers and technology that they need, in addition to the healthcare clinic. So when we talk about the renovation a few weeks ago, I did have the opportunity to show the plan. So this is where I needed a clicker. Sam, do you have a clicker that I could? Oh, the pointer? Is that a pointer? Okay, where's the pointer?
Okay. This one goes forward.
Yeah.
That's the pointer.
Okay. Okay.
It's on the wall. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's not,
Okay, so I'm going to stand for a minute. The way that it looks right now, right now we have the clinic on this side of the building. You've seen that small part of the building. And what our proposal is to move the clinic to the front. So this would be easy access from the street on is that 11 North?
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 north. So families wouldn't be able to, they can actually park on the street, easy access to the building. Here's our large classroom, opportunities for professional development support, whatever we may need. And then this backside is similar to a smaller version of our Liberty and Glendale kitchen, where we actually work with a lot of families. They want to use it. We have instructors who help them in our kitchens at Glendale and also at Liberty. We will also use these two conference rooms up here to collaborate with Valley Mental Health and other organizations to provide support. Quite often, we've used this space right now, which is empty, for Sight Fest also, where we have our kids tested, and then eventually we give the free glasses to our students. But this is the proposed space that we currently have. When we worked with the engineers a few months ago, the proposed renovation, which is the next slide, the cost. Renovation goal would be $970,795. Matching funds, Salt Lake Education Foundation would work towards, working with donors to be able to access some of those donations and other philanthropic organizations. We have been approached by a couple of organizations already that have helped with Liberty, and they're just waiting to see if this is a reality. If we support this, they would be more than willing to support us. So I guess our next steps, this is why I needed to come here and ask for your support. There may be some questions that you still have, but our partnership with Intermountain Healthcare has been tremendous, and we will continue to grow and build together. And recently, we actually finished our contract, our MOU with Intermountain Healthcare, and thank you, Christina Kendall, for that, for assisting us with that. Any questions at all?
Thank you, James, and thanks for this presentation. This is the second time you've been to the board with this information. I think maybe what I want is maybe from you, Superintendent, some clarity about what you're looking for. You're wondering if the board supports you moving forward in finding funds to do this, or if the board is supportive of you doing this.
Yeah, at this point, what I'm asking is basically in the past, it was, it was just discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Now is an opportunity for us to move forward and begin doing the case for support, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I have the support of the board and you feel like is a good direction to move forward, then it would be real easy for us to move forward and create that case for support and begin asking for those donations to renovate the building.
Okay. So board members, this is an opportunity to share your thoughts on this with Mr. Yapias. Christy, go ahead.
So thank you for the presentation, James. So can you just walk us through, because I'm not really clear about the budget process. Are you asking us to support money being spent out of the foundation? Are you asking for us, make it really clear about what you're asking for.
So with the support of the board, I will go out and find potential funders that will fund 100% of the renovation.
Of the almost $1 million?
Yes.
Okay.
And then also, is there an RFP that will go through also? Once we get, so you want to secure the funds first, is that what I'm hearing you say? You want to secure the funds first, then it will go out on RFP, is that correct?
That is correct.
So at the moment, what you're looking for is the board support the idea of you looking
Exactly.
of the remodel.
So there will be no funds from the district? I heard you say something about matching.
Well, the matching funds would come from, for example, I don't want to say the organization or the philanthropic organization, but what they said is if the foundation puts in $200,000, we'll match $200,000. So there are some organizations and philanthropic organizations that want to do that. But I haven't asked that of the district. unless you're willing to, but, but,
Let me jump in.
yes.
No, as James and I have talked about this, I think what he's assured me of is that there's interest in the community in having this be a community resource, and also and it's something that we really appreciate from our partners when they're prepared to put the money where their talk is. Let's say it that way. And so it's our property. We own the property. It's our building. And so James said, if the board, if we are willing to renovate and expand and do these things, then he has a high level of confidence that there'd be partners who'd be willing to pay for that. And so if I understand right, James is asking us, asking the board to say, yes, we're prepared to have the shifts and the moves and make those changes to 1993 was 29 years ago, to update this facility to the needs to the current needs that we have. So that's what he's asking, but not asking for funds.
So may I just?
Continue, yes, go ahead.
So I am a huge supporter of our CLCs, always have been. And I think that if it were a thought-out plan for our capital plan, that it was included, because the Rose Park is not our only CLC. We have we have Glendale, we have Liberty, and so each time that we need to have improvements, it makes it difficult that Mr. Yappius is going to be out looking for funds. And so at some point in time, I think this board needs to have a conversation about how do we also support those initiatives that we put forward, because the CLCs are what we put forward, and that we all agreed that we wanted those on our properties. So I would just say at some point in time, we need to have that conversation so that the district is also a part of the capital improvements of our buildings and of our CLCs, and also down the road hoping that we're going to continue to build them where we need them, because that was also a part of the initiative that we put forward. So I appreciate so much, James, the willingness to go out, and look for those donors, but I also think that as a Board of Education in a district, we also need to own our part of it too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Christy. Just for my clarity, you support James doing that. You just want to have that future conversation. Okay. Other board members, I want to make sure we hear from everybody. Mohammed, go ahead.
James, thank you, and Shuyin, thank you so much for those information. It is actually, since 1993, it appears like it's an old space. Population has changed in the area, and we owe it to our community to have, especially our marginalized community, to have a space where they can actually feel that they are getting into a great location, not like walking into a immigration office. Trust me, not a fun place. And with that, I personally, I do support this plan. And I just have some questions. As I was looking at the blueprint out there, it does show there are only 2 exam rooms. Are those enough? Are those enough rooms, to accommodate the population on the west side?
Well, so when we met with Intermountain Healthcare, we were very careful in bringing their team on board, because we know that we're mapping out also different healthcare centers around that community. And we had key stakeholders come in and work with Intermountain Healthcare. So Intermountain gave their thoughts, their opinion about how this area should be improved, and they felt that this would be significant for that area. In addition to, we have University of Utah, other partners that are coming in, but for this specific location, they felt that this would be a really good plan to renovate the way they recommended.
Okay.
Thanks,
And
Mohammed.
just my only, my only question is about, again, the exam rooms and how long it will take for families to wait. Because let's also think about, like, the west side of our community. A lot of time parents both work, and they may not have enough time to wait for an extended period of time, for the exam to be done or so. So that's what I'm thinking about. But I don't know if you guys have any, or Intermount, if they have any data in terms of, like, the wait time period when we have people out there waiting for the exams.
So I don't have that data in front of me, but I do know that the wait times at these clinics tend to be it tends to be scheduled pretty well in terms of, it's not like a high walk-in clinic where a lot of people are waiting around. And in my experience being there, though I haven't been there for long, like for a whole day, but when I'm there for meetings or in and out, I can tell you that people are typically into their appointment within minutes. It's very unusual to see somebody sitting, waiting for a long period of time. But to that point, I just want to also add one thing that was really important to me based on the feedback we got was that we have after hours. So we do have, this is a clinic that stays open later one night a week, which could always be more, right? But to try to accommodate understanding that schedules can be tight for people, especially for families.
Thank you. And so
I'm
hearing.
May I add? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Hi. Sorry, I've had the flu, so I'm better a little bit, but I asked to join by Zoom. And welcome, Dr. Bates. I'm Nicole. I'm the principal at Rose Park. I just wanted to say also there is a space limitation. We're only 3,000 square feet back there, so I think 2 rooms is all we can get. And luckily, because it is a scheduling clinic, we haven't seen backup. I do want to put a plug in and an appreciation for you guys considering this. I think another really exciting thing is moving to the street side is also a safety issue. We had a concern recently with someone getting in that shouldn't have gotten in, and I am excited for the new clinic for a lot of reasons, and one is also the visibility from the new side of the building. So thank you.
Thank you, Principal. Nicole.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Really, it makes me happy to see that the community is putting every resources possible out there, and the foundation as well, in making sure that every child and everyone in our community is taken care of. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. I hear your support. Other comments from board members? Go ahead, Catherine, and then we'll hear from Bryce and then Lydia. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank James for this plan and for presenting it and for the work on it. I know you've been working on it for a long time. It looks like a great plan to me. It's been a really important clinic. I've watched it. I've seen it in action. Appreciate our principal, Nicole's great leadership and all she does. And I just support the plan and hope that we can get the funding quickly and begin on the renovations.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Bryce.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I actually want to echo very much what Board Member Kennedy said. Wanted to thank James, Shireen, and Principal Palmer. This is a conversation that I've been brought in from it was the first conversation I was brought into as a board member, and this is my community, and I know it is something that our community wants. It's something our community needs. It is something I have utilized myself, so just wanted to thank you all for the work that's been put into it.
Thank you, Board Member Williams. Lydia.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to confirm if I remembered from the last time you presented, you're flipping the format so that the clinic's going to stay open throughout the entire renovation, right?
Yes, that's the goal. That is correct.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Thank you, Lydia. Do any other comments? If it's fine with me if you don't want to add to this, but I do want to hear if this is something you're in support of. Just maybe support.
I'm definitely in support and done everything else to add.
Okay.
That hasn't been.
So Mr. Yapias, thank you for coming and thank you for joining us. Ms. Gorbani, I really appreciate it. I think what you hear is unanimous support. I will 100%, I do 100% support this, and I will echo what Board Member Sweat said. I want to make sure that we're doing our part in maintaining the facilities and supporting this, and so you have our support. But let's keep us in through the process, as I'm sure you'll be communicating with Dr. Bates about it, and you can let us know how that's going and what the board needs to do to show support through this process and keep this going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you for joining us. And as this is the James Yapias show, we're going to leave James at the table.
President Ford.
Uh-huh.
I use the Lotus Cook
Oh, okay.
audience
But,
to
okay,
board
before
lower.
we move on to the next report, if you have a seat, we have one community member, Lourdes Cook. I'm sorry that you were unable, you can sit there, James, and come sit at this microphone right here. I apologize if you had a difficult time finding our building.
Well, no, the issue is that it said 400 West.
Oh, no, oh, no. So you're on the, okay.
In the rescue mission.
Okay, okay. So sit by a microphone so that you can speak into, yeah, just pull it over to you. Yeah, and you've got 3 minutes to address the board, and we won't be able to discuss anything that you speak about, but we want to hear from you.
It was 5 minutes. I represent Artes de Mexico in Utah, which is a nonprofit organization.
Okay, yes,
Whatever.
5 minutes.
Whatever
That's
time
great.
you give me, that's fine. I just want to clarify that. But my name is Lourdes Cook, and I represent Artes de Mexico in Utah, and I'm not sure to what extent you are acquainted with the organization. I have here some flyers that I would like to share for you, if I can pass them on. Oh, can I have one? Don't get mine. But it's just delightful to know that we have an organization such as Artes de Mexico in Utah. I could just ask you a quick question, and I wonder if you know, but you know what is the percentage of Hispanic community here in the state of Utah in numbers? And if you do not know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but it's about 500,000. 500,000 Hispanic community. The majority, 80% or so, come from the culture of Mexico. And it's, you know, like today in my house, I had some people coming and doing some work in my house, and guess who they are from? All from Mexico, from Michoacán, from Querétaro, from Oaxaca, and they are excellent workers, excellent children, and we just, when I first came here to the state of Utah, it was 45 years ago, and I felt very lonely. There were very little opportunities for me to mingle, to connect with the community. There are a lot more opportunities now, and I think that the education system should be a wonderful place where you could incentivize the opportunity to educate your children also culturally. It's not only to speak Spanish or to know, okay, I'm going to have taco, tortillas, tamales, tequila. You know, that you're appropriating a lot of things without really realizing the richness of the culture that is of civilizations that have been here in this continent. You know, if you look at one of the marvels of the world, which is Chichen Itza, the pyramid, you know, they didn't come with the pyramid just, oh, okay, let's put it together. They had a lot of math behind it. They had the culture of understanding the zero, the understanding of math, and togetherness, and working together, and being good merchants, and being good soldiers, and being respectful people, clean, by the way. The Spaniards might not have been as clean, but the indigenous people in Mexico were very clean. But anyway, let me just tell you one area where you could really participate. I look at your mission statement, and I look at my mission of Artes de Mexico in Utah, and they are very similar. It's a sense of connection, it's a sense of contributing to enriching people. And one program that I think would be very interesting for this board to consider is that one of Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, you might not know, but she was the first poet woman in the Americas. And since the beginning that we started with Artes de Mexico in Utah, we came with this contest that encourages language, encourages art, encourages poetry, and is particularly tailored for children. You could have a contest in your schools, and then everybody competes and bring a really sense of connectability. It doesn't matter if you're Mexican or whatever. You might be a refugee from Afghanistan. It doesn't really matter, but you can contribute and put your poetry and your togetherness and honor and respect each other. Also is art, and it's a simple program. You could incorporate it very easily, and it's just bringing respect to the people that contribute so much to this community. 500,000 people. And some are there, are older like myself, that have a rich history of being here, and other people that are just very new to this community, but they will be the future of this state, and it would be a mistake not to consider them. Now, I know that I have little time, so I'm just going to say the last thing here, and that is Film Mexico is another program that we bring together, and I'll share it with all of you, if that's okay. Film Mexico is kind of like the contemporary movies that come once a year to here to Utah, and it has about 11 years that we're bringing those movies. And those movies...
I want to thank you for coming. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's 5 minutes. But just for 1 second, thank you.
Oh, no problem.
I really appreciate this information you've distributed to us and the passion you have about what you're talking about. And this is something that we can maybe ask the superintendent to connect with you about. And thank you for taking the time to find us and to come
My time
bring
went
this
so
information.
fast, didn't it?
I know. It goes so fast. But really, thank you truly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Come to the table. Our next item on our agenda is under reports is West High School Clinic. James?
Okay. Again, I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Thuitt from University of Utah, and also Jared, principal at West High School, Dr. Wright. I was like, and I just can't say enough about the work that we are doing in making sure that our students are taken care of. I know that for many years we talked about how do we provide opportunities for our students in our schools, the healthcare need, mental health, and other areas of support. So we came here and presented a few weeks ago, and we would like to report, and also we'd like to ask a couple questions in support of this proposal. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the West High project, and maybe before we start, Jared, if you don't mind, just talking a little bit about how we started this.
Well, as you know from a few months ago, the idea was presented to each of the schools as we talked about it, about the possibility of having the student health clinic in our schools. And this is something that as I reached out talking to stakeholders at West, that there was a tremendous amount of interest in this and making this happen. So that's something that we've been working with everybody up here just to see if it would be feasible at West High in our facility, in our community and everything. So that's what we've been doing for the past, actually almost a year, right? We've been talking about this, but particularly the past 3.5 months, there's been a lot more detailed conversations about if it would be possible and how. So that's kind of where we are.
So at our last meeting, we discussed, there were several questions that came up, and I didn't want to go back to discussing the presentation that we had, but more than anything, just answering some questions that you brought to our attention. If we can, let me see it. All right, University of Utah High School Clinic Consent and Privacy. So if you don't mind, Dr. Thuitt.
I love talking legal. First of all, thank you guys for having us back. Dr. Bates, I don't think we've met before, so it's nice to see your face. And Lydia, you as well. It's nice to see everybody else again as well. We have been meeting with our legal team to kind of briefly discuss the concept and the project and talk to them about what that would look like. And so it pretty much is quite consistent with what would happen if you came to one of our university clinics, so our pediatrics clinic in Sugar House or South Main or our university-based clinic. There's a number of forms that everyone signs. Usually they're online and nobody reads them, but what they are actually is our conditional agreement, so that's the consent to be treated by the University of Utah, consent to bill insurance if a patient is insured. Also, the Notice of the Privacy Practices Acknowledgement, that's the HIPAA form right there. And then MyChart Access, which is something that parents are able to gain access into their child's chart. And so that's another form that we do in our clinics as well. The additional things that would be created for this type of site are a consent to be seen for services without parent present. So that's something that we currently do in an informal way. So I'll have adolescent patients who come to my clinic in Sugar House, and when they do, the parent will call and say, hey, my child's being seen for X, Y, or Z follow-up. Can I give my verbal consent for this visit for my child to be seen without me, and then I can speak with the provider afterwards. And we do that regularly. We just document that they gave verbal consent. This would be a more formalized consent form that parents can choose to sign if they want their child to be able to be seen at this clinic. They still have the same access for their child being seen. It's not blocking anything off for them. It's just giving the consent for them to be seen. And then there's also something called a minor confidentiality form, which we do offer in our clinics to high school age students. This is something that parents can look at. It's already created and choose if they want a certain portion of their child's chart to be blocked from access from the parent. This is the parent's choice. Because we know that confidential discussions lead to better health care. Some parents choose, the majority of parents, I would say, actually choose to do this form, but parents absolutely don't have to. They also can revoke that form at any point, so it's not a lifelong form as well. And so those are the only things that would be added on to what our standard forms are that we do, and that would be that packet that we discussed that gets sent home at the beginning of the year, like registration forms. In order to do those forms, we obviously need our two legal teams to get working on them. So that's one of the things that we'll be asking for at the end is, can we start pursuing that legal process?
Thank you. Appreciate you. And obviously, that was one of the questions that was brought up, and we wanted to do some more research. And on both sides, on our end, we know that we have worked with Intermountain Healthcare, CHC, community health centers, and others. So we would be working and creating something similar to that, so that way we have those areas covered. The second thing we talked about was location. I always say the principal of the school is the one ultimate person who decides, along with Paul Schulte, whether or not we can find space. And so I went back to Jared, and Jared, came back to us with an idea. And so if you don't mind discussing that.
Well, Dr. Thute and I, it was 2 months ago, went through just to look at space potentials as some things where we could maybe use space a little bit more efficiently. But we do have quite a few locker rooms at West, more than we need, way more than we need. So what you're looking at right here is actually what the originally designed is visiting team locker rooms, or also a football meeting room. My football coach does not know that we're talking about this right now because I'm letting him be focused on a very big game on Friday. He does now, yes. But as we were talking and looking at space, and Dr. Thurett was talking about how the different spaces could be used, where with really in some cases very minor modification to a room could actually function very well for the space that was needed. We also have, as you know, like the other high schools do, we have a family resource center. It's given the unique layout of West High School, it's in a awkward place, the Family Resource Center. It's not we can't load things very easily to it. It's hard for people to come and pick up large amounts of food and whatever and get to their car easily. Anyway, so our idea was actually that this would maybe be an opportunity to find Family Resource Center better space, as well as providing space for a Student Health Center. So what you're looking at up here is actually 2 visitor locker rooms, 2 formal coaches' offices, a team meeting space, and then a large coach's office. Sorry, Junior.
He doesn't know.
I know.
Formal coach
I'm letting-
implies like he's being let go, though.
Yeah, no,
It's the office.
no. Yeah.
Former.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not yet. Yeah. It's. But the space that you would see would be a workroom for the medical staff, the rooms where they could be meeting with patients. The lobby would be a common lobby for people coming to the Family Resource Center. The spaces just up the screen from the lobby, those are actually the current locker rooms, where that's where they'd be converted, where the food would be stored and also the clothing. We also would take the opportunity with existing plumbing to have some private shower areas installed for students to shower, as well as a place for washer and dryer, just like they have at East High. We don't have that right now. We have to find different places for that to happen, as well as converting one or both of the coaches' spaces into consultation rooms, and possibly even some space for our family resource coordinator to have a place to coordinate. She's right now kind of in the middle of a bunch of stuff, is where her desk is. So our thought is that we would utilize this space more efficiently, and repurpose this. I spent some time with Todd Plaga and with Paul Schulte yesterday going through this to get into it a little bit to see what a cost would be like. I won't speak for them, but I think they caught the vision of it as they had the map and were going through the space and could see how this could be done relatively easily. We're not moving major walls or anything. It would be adding some space and possibly moving some plumbing things, and maybe some ventilation changes. So that's where that space is.
Could you orient me where it is in the building?
If you are in the Science and Tech Wing, so if you're in the football stadium looking south, and you have the Science and Tech Wing, the entrance into that part right behind the scoreboard, there's one of the original statues up there hammering something. That is where you see where it says atrium. If you were walking right through that door, bottom left, there we go.
Okay.
You'd be walking in there, and the door is right there to the right.
Okay.
This also gives ground level access to Family Resource Center and to the health clinic. We'd need to adjust some parking and some things, but it has not its own exterior exit and door, but it's pretty close to that. So.
And I just want to highlight a couple of things on this model, because I think it's actually quite incredible, this space, and I have to congratulate Jared for having the vision to show it to me. The first time we walked through it, I was like, what's happening?
That was the smell.
That
was the problem.
The smell we have discussed. But this is actually just such an incredible location. The outside access, because there are visits that we would actually want parents to be present for, or a parent would want to be present for. Also, we'd like this to not be just during school hours, and we'd like it to be something over the summer as well. We'd like it to be 12 months a year. That direct access into the clinic without having to go into the school, and it's also on its own security grid, is fantastic. The other thing that I just want to highlight, this vision for this clinic, when we presented last time, we really highlighted the mental health crisis in Utah and in our county in particular. And since talking to you last time, the group that has come together for this clinic is one of the first to have ever existed in the country. We will have substance use disorder specialists, so addiction specialists. We will have child and adolescent psychiatrists. We will have social workers, educational psychologists, developmental pediatricians and medicine pediatricians all together in this model. The other thing that I'm very, very conscious of is making sure that when students are coming to be seen for mental health services, that no one else can notice that that's what they're there for. You could be coming to be seen for a sprained ankle. You could be coming to be seen for addiction. any of those things, and with this shared lobby space and the way that we've designed the different exam rooms, nothing about it says this is a mental health location that you're going to be going into. And so I think that's really, really important for students to feel that they have a safe place to be. The last thing is Jared's concept of bringing the Family Resource Center downstairs is fantastic. Like, what a great place that people can get their healthcare needs, come in to get food and clothing or diapers if needed, and anything else that we can offer support for families. So I loved that incorporation as well.
Thank you, Dr. Suet.
So the funding plan. One of the things that we've done with our other partners is, in collaborating with them, we typically create an MOU and a contract of some sort. And when they are using the space, we carefully review the process, make sure there's a lot of in-kind contribution and support for our students. Along with that, Salt Lake Education Foundation will partner with the University of Utah office to raise funds needed. I know that Dr. Thuet, it's exciting to know that there are federal grants through the University of Utah that she's willing to write through their development office, so that way it's no cost to us on the medical side. Our focus would be to do CHIP and Medicaid, get as many students enrolled, educate our families about getting enrolled for that specific purpose. So the funding purpose is, in talking even to Paul, I wanted a number. I said, well, how much is it going to cost to do the cosmetic changes? Because we're not moving walls, we're not moving anything other than just some, not minor, but some areas that we will need to do some cosmetic things. And I always like to not throw a number out there, but we're thinking about $400,000 to $500,000 to do some of the renovation. Not renovation, the just cosmetic part. And but Paul did say, so the drawing that you have here, this right here will need to be done by our civil engineers in the district, so that way we understand where everything is at and what the actual cost is going to be. And then, so this is was done by the U, measured everything that the concept was done by the University of Utah, but then when we went back to Paul and Todd, they said, okay, we're going to have if we're going to do this, we have to have our civil engineers involved, and then we can give you the cost. So as far as funding, do you want to talk a little bit about the grant, if you don't mind? And then
Yeah, I am 60 pages into a grant that is due next Monday. It is a $2.5 million grant from HRSA for mental and behavioral health in adolescents. There is additionally, beyond that, as of July, a $500 million bucket that has been distributed out to states for expanding student health services and health care at schools. And there is a separate $500 million bucket that has gone out to states to expand mental health services in school-based health centers. So we have a large number of venues to pursue funding for this. I'm not sure if we talked last time, but typically school-based health centers with billing insurances generate about 40% to 60% maximum, depending on the biller mix of the revenue operating, of the operating cost of these clinics. They never become 100% sustainable. They are not money makers by any means. They are something we should do and are, I think, indebted to our community to do. And so we anticipate that by year 5, our goal is to be meeting that national average with billing. We're pursuing 100% startup cost because we don't want to have any gaps in the cost of this. And so between that grant, we have a number of organizations in the community that are very interested in getting behind this. The University of Utah is very excited as well. We feel very confident that we can raise the money for it, but it is not something that will ever be 100% sustainable in terms of insurance billing. We know that it's going to require a mix of state, federal, possibly foundation funding, but we're already in discussions with the legislature as well to start pursuing some of that money that's coming in for those 2 different buckets that I mentioned.
So my last slide is, so what are the next steps? Obviously, we would go right into begin writing up some sort of a memorandum of understanding, take a look at the consent agreements, make sure that both legals at the U and our district would review that process, start reaching out to potential donors. Again, we're back here to ask for your support. We know that this could have this is thinking outside the box, really thinking about being innovative and supporting our students and families. I appreciate Jared for being persistent and Dr. Thuet, and I think there's a lot that we can do here. So. What I'm asking right now is for you to give us the green light to move forward, if that's the direction we want to go, and do that. So,
thank you for the three of you for being here and for this information. I'd love to hear from the board. Questions for this group, your thoughts, support for moving forward. If you've got questions or concerns. Go ahead, Nate.
Let me find my timer.
Sam, do you mind allowing me to see the other board members? Thank you. All right, Nate, go ahead, Nate.
Thank you, President Ford. So one, I think this is a great idea, and I'm not necessarily a question, but hoping that maybe James and Dr. Thuet and Principal Wright, if you could just kind of emphasize again the importance of a clinic like this and the accessibility of a clinic like this, the positive impacts that it can have on students. Where it might be very, very difficult, and that was kind of the tone of what I felt like we discussed last time y'all were here, is really just accessibility and what kind of impacts that can have on the quality of life for students, not only in their personal and their home lives, but then academically in their school lives as well.
Yes, and actually I can send you slides on that as well. We have great outcome measures looking at quality of life, so looking specifically at classroom seat hours for students who have access to a student-based health center, graduation rates, dropout rates. So I can send you that slide. We also have a quantity of life one, so that's really targeting this mental health crisis, right? That suicide is the #1 cause of death for students in Utah from the age of 12 to 24. It's also more cause of death than the next 4 causes combined as well for 12 to 17-year-olds. And that we know that a survey done in 2019 in Salt Lake City, so county, showed that students in high school, 1 out of 10 of them had reported in the past year that they had attempted suicide at least once. And that is a huge risk factor of completing suicide. And we know we've suffered from this in our community. Davis School District had 3 students commit suicide on the same day a month ago. 2 of those students unfortunately passed away, 1 survived. Oh gosh, sorry. So anyway, so I can send you those outcome measures on the accessibility of mental health services. Students, I think, are 10 times more likely to receive mental health care if they have it done at their school. Melissa, you're gonna make me cry. And so having that access to mental health services is really important. The other thing is as I've been writing all these pages for this grant, I've gotten really into detail into the crisis in Utah as an entire state. We have one of the worst rates of child psychiatrists per child in the country. So we have 6 child psychiatrists for every 100,000 children in our state. And that is very concentrated to certain areas. Salt Lake City is still actually a shortage compared to the national average. So even us being the urban location that we are, we're still behind on that. The incredible thing about this type of model is that we're able to bring mental health care directly to students. They did a survey in Utah, I think it was 2017 or 2018, where they talked to parents of students who had died of suicide, and they asked those families, did they try seeking mental health services? If they did try, what were the barriers, et cetera? And the #1 barrier was just not having access to it, or it being a 6 or a 9-month wait. And so this is really incredible for our students that we can bring this right to them. This grant that I'm specifically applying for is meant to address our mental health crisis, particularly in adolescents. And part of the goal of that grant is to say we have such a shortage of child and adolescent psychiatrists that we need to be amping up how much we're doing in primary care. And so this model that we put together of primary care doctors and mental health providers sitting next to each other is a perfect example of how to be successful and overcome that barrier of the child psychiatrist. Interestingly, this is the model we had already created before the grant became available, so I think we're well poised to be set up for success to win that. The other thing I think I had to send you, Nate, to answer your question was also like amount of time missed from work for families and things like that. So I'm happy to send those to James and he can forward them onto the board for you guys to look at those outcome measures that have been well published.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Hewitt, for describing that again, and you know, I really appreciate the care and the emotion and the spirit that you put into your work and sharing that with our students and with our district, and I appreciate that a lot. I just have one more question, President Ford, if that's okay, and it's probably more for James and Superintendent and Business Administrator Kearsley, but knowing that we're looking at grant fundings to get this started, what does sustainability look like over the long term? If this is something that we're going to do, and to Board Member Sweat's point about our CLCs, like what's our part, and how do we maintain these moving forward?
Well, you know, the sustainability part, typically when we write a proposal, we want to make sure we write a 3-year proposal, and then we will be able to collect data, bring that back to the board, report down on a yearly basis, and then create a plan, a long-term plan moving forward. I do agree with you. We would have to discuss. I know there's a lot of things happening at this point where rebuilding of West and all that within the next 5 to 6 years or whatever many years. But the reality is, I think for as a foundation, we would look into not only these other grants in collaborating with the University of Utah Development Office in co-writing these proposals, so that way the sustainability lasts more than just 3 years. Over time, I think we need to bring the data and information back to this board, and then be able to have that discussion. How do we make that a part of the capital campaign or whatever it may be? But those recommendations will come back. I know that I've had conversations with Alan, and we've talked about first, let's write these grants, let's go after philanthropic dollars. But the movement is there too. I mean, you hear about it. Health centers in Davis School District. Granite is trying to do some. They actually come to us to see our CLCs. And we have a group coming from Washington, D.C., from Virginia, to come. 20 administrators are coming to see Glendale Community Learning Center. And that's going to happen on December 7th, I believe. And so I think we're further ahead in our district in how we've created these CLCs, but also this is more a height of a school clinic, and I think the sustainability piece will come from doing the research, making sure that we have the right data collected and working in collaboration with you. So.
And just to put a couple of numbers out there, for grants like this, these are typically a 5-year program that we're applying for. So this grant in particular is for 5 years. As you go forward, typically supplemental funding is offered as well for this type of project. Most school-based health centers receive state funding, and that is something that we're working very strongly with at the state level of like, this is what we should be doing. And now that those huge dollar amounts have been distributed to the states, that well sets them up to be like, okay, this is something we actually have to start funding. So that's a long-term part of our sustainability plan as well, on top of the billing. But I think the operating cost, the gap in terms of like expected generation of revenue and how much we would have to cover otherwise moving forward, like in year 5, is only about $500,000 a year for the model. And so it's actually not as much money as you would anticipate it to be able to provide this many different specialists in the school.
Thank you. Other comments, questions from board members? And what they're looking for is support to initiate this MOU process to move forward. So I would anticipate that the board would be involved in hearing your progress and things like that.
Catherine and Lydia.
Go ahead, Catherine.
So I think this is a great idea. I really support it. I support that what it'll bring to West. And, you know, as everyone knows, we've been talking about something like this for a while, and I'm really glad to see it come to fruition with the help of Principal Wright and this team. So thank you so much for your work on this. And I think it will help all the students in the West boundaries and many beyond. So it's really a terrific initiative, and I really appreciate the work you're doing on it.
Thank you, Catherine. Other comments? Lydia?
I think this is an outstanding idea. I go to West, so I know the space you're talking about, and I think I see the vision too.
Good job, Jared.
Based on my experience at West and talking to the students and the student body, the mental health crisis is real in our schools. And resources like this are crucial to helping those students. I think I know of students firsthand who have resource like this would help them immensely. I know from students who want access to mental health care but don't feel like there's a reasonable avenue for them to get it. They don't feel maybe like they have the parents who can pay for therapy, or they don't want to burden like parents with the idea of that. So an idea like this, I think, is really crucial. Especially, I think counselors and West counselors are operating with many more students than they can reasonably handle to handle sensitive mental health issues with the full time and respect they deserve. And so going to an outside resource like this, I think would be really crucial. I have one suggestion for the space. I've spoken from district students who suffer from anxiety attacks or panic attacks, and one of the things that can help the most with that is a safe place to decompress or handle that. I know Davis District has calm rooms, Clearfield High School specifically, and I wonder if there's space in the plan to incorporate something similar.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. That room that says storage is, I don't really know what's going to happen in that room, so I think we have a new idea. That's a great idea. I love it. Do you have any idea what those spaces look like?
I could find out more information. I think the one at Clearfield is just a converted locker room.
Okay.
But maybe like comfortable chairs or just like like just an unstimulating room for people to be able to calm down in.
That's a great idea. I love that. I think we could definitely look into this. Space is actually quite massive, much bigger than I had envisioned. So I think we could definitely do that. That's a fantastic idea.
Lydia brings good ideas to the table.
Students bring the best ideas. It's true.
Thank you, Lydia. Other comments or questions? Mohammed, our board member Bade, had to step out, but he wanted to say that he is in full support of this. I really appreciate you bringing the information you brought today about the consent forms and how carefully you'll honor that process. I think one of my concerns last time we talked and you heard it was that we want to make sure parents are a part of this process, and we're always honoring the parent role in their child's health. And I think making it close and providing that access is good, as long as we are very much holding ourselves to a high standard of fidelity to those forms for parent consent. I think that's essential to. I mean, I think it's essential for it to work and for my support. And so I really appreciate that that you bringing that information, and then that real true commitment to making sure that parents are honored as the partner there. I think that's really essential for me. And then I mean, I don't have long to follow this process, and I really look forward to seeing this happen. But I want to make sure it's a thoughtful and intentional conversation in terms of how that space is being rebuilt, or I just want to make sure that we're using funds wisely and not building something or putting money into something that then has to be undone or redone, or let's do it efficiently as efficiently as we can, and then honestly as quickly as we can, because I feel like the need is yesterday, at least 2 days ago, maybe.
Our target for this is next August. That is truly, which is very
thank you.
fast.
Yes.
But I will tell you that one of the requirements of this grant is that it has to happen next year. So if they give us $2.5 million and we can't do it, we have to turn it to a different location. So, I mean, we really want this to happen fast. We are in a crisis for mental health care, and everyone, all of our partners are so on board. So I think that Jared found an amazing space for us to work in, and I think it's a great point to be like, let's be thoughtful about it. I think in terms of renovation, shockingly, despite the smell, I don't think it's actually going to be a whole lot of changes other than some temporary walls for the exam room.
You brought the smell up twice now.
It's intense.
It's bad.
Leftover locker room smell, because I've smelled that before. That's not fun.
Can I?
All right.
Can I
Go
just
ahead,
say
Jared.
this?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Wright.
There's been so much effort, I know coming from the board, from school levels, to expand our social emotional support for students, social workers, expanding counselors, access and resources that we're connecting families to outside of a school. Those are significant and have an impact. This is a sea change in the services that we can offer our students during the school day. If one thing that we know is that we have to take care of business when they're there, right? From 8 to 4, 8:45 to 3:15. So this is for us to have that where they're getting that type of service on site where they are is a significant. It's huge. And this is an exciting project to be part of, so we appreciate that, the support for it.
Yeah, thank you for your support of it. It's good to hear that. And
Just-
do I,
can I
go
just-
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
With fixing this, with your proposal, what then do you propose for the football team who is about to take state?
Yes, they are. We have, as I mentioned, we have lots of locker rooms. They were previously in a different place that we just need to make a little bit more functional, and that will be okay.
No, all humor aside,
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm in huge support of it.
Yeah.
I went to school back in the islands, and we have a clinic on site, and it was really helpful for us who traveled so far because there's only so many schools that we were able to go to, and there was no chance for our parents to pick us up. So when there was a need for tending to health problems, it was available. And it was convenient for the student and also the parent. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I've always wondered why America never started with clinics or had clinics in high school when I was here. I always thought, my mom would actually get mad when I'd call her, I have a headache, they told me to come home, And she's like, like she'll have to come and pick me up. But I think it's brilliant. I'm totally in support. I'm a huge mover of the social and emotional learning. I can have a lot of empathy towards that, and I'm so excited for this proposal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's no other comments or discussion. I think you've heard that the board supports initiating this MOU process, and we're excited to hear how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you, James, for leading these reports, and thank you for being here. We'll now move to the discussion portion of our agenda, and the first item for discussion is the Utah High School Activity Association coaches' pay. And I think Business Administrator Kersley, I'll let you lead that discussion, and thank you, Missy, for joining us.
So in our last business meeting, we brought forward this proposal. We had done a study on how we're compensating our high school activities association coaches. Realized we were behind the market, so we put together this proposal to bring them up to market. The proposal is included in the memo that was attached to the agenda. There's two things that we're proposing. The first one in the body of the memo, currently if we have a coach who is not otherwise employed by the district, there's no growth in that pay. So we're proposing 5-year steps for
5 steps.
Five steps every, so a step every 5 years, up to 5 steps. So there would be some ability to grow for coaches who are not otherwise employed by the district. And then for those coaches that are employed by the district, on the back, the second page of the attachment, so we pay them a number of days at their daily rate, and we're proposing a 25% increase in the number of days, and that increase is laid out in the chart that's included in the attachment. So at this point, we're looking for approval to make those changes to the pay schedule for our high school activities coaches and activities sponsors, or whatever they're officially called.
And we would start that this month if
Okay.
it is approved, because we have our fall sports that have taken place, and we will break down coaches who have been on for quite a long time, with over 6 years. We'll start that process right away. I think Catherine Kennedy brought it up quite a bit, has said about how our athletics, especially in trying to keep sports at West, we have a lot of kids out there, and I think we'd be able to find that we'd be able to maintain and keep a lot of our coaches, because we'd be able to be up to the standard in the industry. We looked at every district between Davis down to Provo and looked at all the averages. We took Granite's, all of them. We did a lot of research on this. And this is what we came up with, it to be able to be equitable and fair.
Okay. Thank you for bringing it to us. So again, just for clarity and reminder, we discussed this in a business meeting a month ago. This is an opportunity now for the board to discuss it, potentially take action on it should the board so choose. I appreciate you bringing this recommendation to the board, and then by way of reminder, that your expected cost for this would be about an increase of $200,000 a year in ongoing funds. Okay, I'm going to open the discussion to the board. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Nobody wants to discuss, or is everybody reading?
I'm ready. You're ready. I'm ready.
Jenny, you support it?
I support it.
Okay. Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm just wondering, it seems to me like Ellen gave us a suggestion about where the money was going to come from. Mm-hmm. So is that from hoped for additional revenue? Is that right, Ellen? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
So 2 options laid out in the memo. Number 1, we have the vacant position that we could defund.
Vacant position that's at the cabinet level, the Executive Director of Educational Operations and Strategic Leadership.
Defund that and use those resources. And the other option laid out is from property tax growth revenue.
I do also want to add in there that our teachers that are coaches, they will stay within their daily rate, so that will be 2 separate things. They'll stay. That was one of the things that we promised the union, Hubler, the association, and we wanted to make sure that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that was the options that we were going to do. This is for our coaches who are non-teachers.
The steps are for the coaches that are not employed by the district except for as coaches.
Yes. The additional days will be for.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
How are you going to make that choice, Alan, between how we're going to fund that? I mean, can we determine that?
Yes. So I'm looking to the board to determine which of those 2 choices to use for funding.
Right. So I think I can support that if we're taking it from that position. I hate to hinder the funds, the upcoming funds, which I think we'll get, but we always have so many uses for those funds that I think I would approve this if we were decommissioning that position.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Go ahead, Christy.
So I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
That we accept this proposal, this recommendation, and that we utilize the $200,000 and defund the position of Executive Director of Organizational and Strategic Leadership.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let's first move this to action. So could you just make that motion quickly?
I move to move it to action.
Okay. So do I have a second to
I'll
move this
second.
to action? Okay, thank you. Motion by Christie and second by Bryce to move to action. Any discussion about moving this to action? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote, beginning with Board Member Sika.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed's not with us. Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, Christie, if you want to go ahead and make your motion.
For the action? Okay. I move that we approve the recommendation as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Christie, second by Catherine, that we accept the proposal for the increase to the UHSAA coaches' pay as recommended, with the funding coming from the position of the Director of Educational Operations and Strategic Leadership. All right, any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. This time we'll begin with Dr. Kennedy in Precinct 3.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. Thank you, Missy. All right, we'll move to the next item that's up for discussion, and that's the Salt Lake Virtual Elementary mascot. Is there somebody here to lead that discussion? Alan's going to do that. Thank you, Business Administrator Kersley.
So per administrative procedures of G16, mascots, it says the board shall have final authority and responsibility for approving mascots. So the virtual school has followed the process to bring forth a mascot proposal to the board, and that's laid out in the memo that's attached to the agenda. What they have selected is the foxes, and they lay out the process that they went through and the votes, the different options they had. And so I am now bringing forward their request or proposal to adopt the mascot of foxes for the Salt Lake Virtual Elementary School.
Thank you, Business Administrator. I appreciate that. So we'll open this for discussion from the board and potential action should the board choose. This is the first time we're seeing it, so if it's something that the board chooses not to take action on tonight, that's perfectly appropriate. But you've all had a chance to read the memo, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in discussion. Anybody want to weigh in on it? Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, I think it's a real fun idea that the virtual school have a mascot, and just reading through all the materials, it seems like they've gone through all the steps and processes. So I would be in support of supporting the students and the administrators to put this together.
Thank you, Nate. Any other thoughts?
President Ford,
Go ahead, Catherine.
I like the idea of fox. I love the animal fox. I think that we see foxes around Salt Lake City and in the community occasionally when we're lucky. I think that the use of the fox would be perfectly appropriate, and really that all that depends on how it's depicted in in image. And so we might want to see that, but I think it's a great mascot, and I support it. I like the idea of dragon too, though, but I do like the idea.
Don't we have dragons? Are they the Dilworth dragons? Yeah. Not that that's inappropriate to have two sets of dragons, but okay. Thank you, Catherine. I'm hearing from discussion, a couple board members in support. Any other thoughts or comments on this?
I move that we move this to the action agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Catherine to move this to action. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Catherine and second by Vice President Salazar. Do I have any discussion to the motion to move the Salt Lake Virtual Elementary mascot to action? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on on moving the Salt Lake Virtual Elementary mascot to action, beginning with Precinct 4 and Board Member Salazar.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Okay, that motion
Is
carries.
Jenny not here? Catherine Kennedy, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't see.
I figured.
That's okay.
Okay, yes, Jenny stepped out. She'll be back in a minute, so perhaps we'll wait for the vote.
Sorry, go ahead.
For Jenny, but now it's on action, so we can have I'm open to accepting a motion to take action on this.
I move that we accept the mascot of Fox and have grant the request that the Salt Lake Virtual Academy be known as the Salt Lake Virtual Foxes.
All right.
Appreciate it for their work.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a motion by Board Member Kennedy to accept the proposal from the Salt Lake Virtual Elementary School that their mascot be foxes. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second again.
Okay, motion by Catherine and second by Nate. Any discussion to this motion? I thank you to Business Administrator Kersley for following the policy and bringing this to our attention, and for the work from the elementary school to go through this. I'm going to support this. I think I like foxes too, but I'm not in love with the idea of the virtual elementary being foxes. But I appreciate the process, and I do support them in that. So I'm going to vote in support of this, mostly because they've honored the process. Any other discussion to this motion? Okay, we'll go ahead and start voting on this. This vote begins with me, actually, in Precinct 6. So I'm going to go ahead and vote yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Okay, Mohammed's not here. That motion carries. Thank you. That now concludes our discussion agenda, as well as we've taken action on the items that were moved to our action agenda. And so now I'm going to turn the time to the superintendent for the superintendent's report.
I don't have anything to report on this evening, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, it's now your turn for board member report. Board member Sweat, go ahead.
So I want to first say that I am a huge proponent of our SEL goal. I have been from the very beginning. And I think that the clinics that we have in our district, the CLCs, are such an important component. I think the thoughtfulness behind the conversation tonight, the emotion, the passion, the things that Lydia spoke about as a student at West High, that all of those things are important, to the health and well-being of our students. But what I want to say tonight is that there are very few things that are in our statute that are our responsibilities, and one of them is being the fiscal agent. And I think that when we have two presentations on commitments, long-term financial commitments, that I'm trying to figure out where we're missing the pieces of coming to the board first, not months after something's already been talked about in a community or a school or a place that's been identified in a building already, that the board should be a part of it, the superintendent should be a part of it, our business administrator should be a part of that from the beginning, not at the end. And so, although I completely agree with everything that we said tonight, but as the fiscal agents of this district, we need to be a little bit more conscientious about who comes to the table and talks to us about using the capital of donors and grants the way that it has been. And that to be able to say with 100% assurity that we've been brought along in this process all along, that we understand what all the pieces and parts are, because I still don't. And I think that the financial commitment that we're making, I'm there. I think that for the health and well-being of our students and our families, that we need to be looking at the importance of wraparound services. But we also need to remember that you're now committing future boards. And if you don't have all the information in front of you, I just want us to start asking, why aren't we being brought in the beginning? Why isn't this a plan that's being brought and laid out from the very beginning? And that we can be responsible with our money, because grants and donors at some point in time may go away. And then it becomes our responsibility, and especially where we're looking at building, our high schools in a really responsible way. And I think that I wanted to say that tonight, but I also didn't want tomatoes thrown at me, because I believe in this. Thanks, Jenny. I believe in this, but I just want us to be super careful about how we go about this as a board. And also the governance piece of this is really important. We need to understand what our responsibilities are and the step-by-steps. And so I would just say, let's be really cautious. Let's ask those questions. Let's make sure the superintendent and our BA are not caught off guard, and that if the foundation is thinking of something, that needs to be a report sooner than later, to the board, because we are the fiscal agents for all entities of the district.
I really appreciate that, Christy. Thank you for that.
I thank you for letting me say that. And the last thing I want to say is I just really appreciate the good work that's going on in our schools right now. I think that our teachers are doing such great work, and I don't say that enough here, and I just want them to know how much I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's going behind some of the work they're doing, because there's a lot of pressures that are in schools right now. And as we talked about, and as Lydia said, things that are happening in kids' life affect the classroom. And I just want them to know how much I appreciate the work that they're doing with the little bit of resources that we're trying to provide to them. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Sweat. Do I have other reports? Anything other board members would like to add? I'd like to thank you for your service, for your commitment. I appreciate the work you do. I see it. I know that this is difficult and complicated work, and I appreciate the care and concern that you all put to it. And I think all these different voices at the table really lead to solid decisions, and really appreciate that caution from Board Member Sweat. I think it's always good for us to be thinking through that governance process and making sure we're doing it thoughtfully and that we're being good stewards. And so I really strongly appreciate what you had to say, Christy. I'm gonna also say I had the opportunity over the last 2 weeks and appreciate the help I received from Ms. Kindle in particular, but others in looking at the trainings that our board has partaken in over the last couple of years, and it's not insignificant. I was really quite impressed with the level of dedication that the board, you as board members, have taken in participating in trainings that help us to be better at the job we do. And so thank you for that. It was really a privilege to be able to see that kind of commitment to the positions you hold. So thank you. And then I'll also just say thank you to all the good work. I started off this meeting by saying how great it was and fun it was to see all of the postings about Halloween in our district, and the celebration and the joy that I see on children's faces and their teachers' faces. It's just good to be having fun together, and that's why we love what we do. So thank you all for being here, and seeing as how we've completed everything on our agenda, I'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.